Hello, I am Yentor, and today I'm gonna do my testimony. It's gonna be with less sound effects and no cuts because it's kind of a serious topic. You know what I mean? So it's basically my life story and what happened and what caused me to follow Christ, like through pain and all that other stuff. So I'll be explaining everything, and I chose this map for a reason. Mount Olympus, so Greece, basically because it has things to do with what God has given me, what God provided for me. So I'll explain everything from the genesis of my life to, yeah, basically right now. So I was born at a very young age, and yeah, like everyone else, I was born and raised in Belgium. My family were atheists, so that means that they don't believe in God or don't believe that there's anything after death or whatever. So obviously I grew up atheist as well, and when I was around 11 years old, my mother passed away from breast cancer. Obviously we were all devastated, and we had a lot of weeping and a lot of sadness for a long time, but eventually I learned to cope with it in a not healthy way by like putting it away, like hiding it, which is not healthy. Also, I did not mention that the household I grew up in was pretty toxic. So, and it only became worse with that my mother passed away. It became worse, and the household was very aggressive. So obviously, because of that aggression, I also was aggressive. I became full of hatred because of that. Aggression in the household. I also became aggressive. So that means that I would out that pain on other people. And that means those people also hurt other people because of that. Now, when I was in high school, I became very depressed and like very sad, and I didn't do anything anymore and failed all my grades. And I had to quit school because of how depressed I was. So I quit school and was home for a few months to like build myself or like trying to help myself or better myself. But instead I played video games to cope and to ignore the pain. Then I went back to school, but I couldn't go back to school, so I had to go to an adult school. And in that adult school it was like IT. I did not like that school, and I became even more depressed. And I told my family that I was depressed. So later they told me that I should end my life, and they gave me suggestions on how I should do it. I already told you that my family, well, I didn't, but my family is very, not nice. So they gave me suggestions on how to end my life, both my sister and my dad. So of course I became more and more of hatred because of how other people treated me, and I started becoming a really racist and really aggressive person that was a borderline Nazi. I craved for attention because I was so lonely. I even would call in class. I would call the police and then say I butt dialed, but I did not. I just was craving so much attention because I was feeling so lonely. I started doing self-harm as well. I took a knife and cut my hip. Now, I made one lie to the principal. I was sent to the principal and I said that I started seeing things in the mirror, which I did not. That was a lie, but that one sentence was one of the changes that would be made to my life towards Christ. So he suggested I should get a priest. It was like a very one-on-one conversation that was later involved with my dad, and my dad started getting really mad at him, like really mad. And I felt really bad for the guy because he didn't do anything. He's just trying to help me, and my dad was trying to stop that from happening. I mean, I did not believe in God, but I was willing to give it a try, a priest that would like try and help me. I didn't believe in any of that, but I was craving attention. That's why I mostly did it. Then I got an apprentice job at a children's school for IT. And my co-worker was a religious man. He was a Jesus follower. So he asked me, do you believe in God? I said, well, no. And he said, do you think you would go to heaven? And I said, well, I don't know. And he asked me, have you ever told a lie? And I said, yes. Have you ever looked at a woman lustfully? I said, yes. Have you ever used God's name in vain? I said, yes. What he said next made me cry. He said, you're a lying, thieving adulterer who blasphemes God. And it hit me. It really hit me in the spirit, like, actually. That's the first time I felt anything like that. I felt loved but also convicted. I held back my tears because I was gonna cry and I didn't want to embarrass myself. So I held back my tears, and over the following days he kept talking to me about God, and I decided, you know what, let me give it a try. Let me give it a try. So I did, and I fell in love with God. I'm not gonna lie. I fell in love with Jesus. So I told my family that I was a Christian now, and they laughed at me, and they mocked me, and they told all these evil things towards me just because I said I was Christian. Then I started realizing and changing myself of how I was, because I was very evil, as I said before in this video. So I started changing myself because I grew up aggressive and stuff because of the environment. So I started standing up against my dad and sister for what they were saying and doing. So that they started turning on me because I did not stand for what they were standing for anymore. I did not let that hatred anymore. I did not like hating on people or wishing death upon people or doing evil things to people. I started having these revelations from God, like God one time told me to go outside on my bare feet and to go towards the end of the garden. And I didn't know why, but I did. I obeyed. So outside there was a bird stuck in our like plant thingy. There was like a cage where the plants are in, and it was stuck in there. And that's how. And then I told my dad that God told me I had to go to the end of the garden. I didn't know why. And then the bird was free because I set it free. And then he mocked me and laughed at me, and then later got me to physical therapy. Not physical, mental therapy. And told me I was crazy and having these delusions and stuff. And I felt really heartbroken because of that. Then they started lying to everyone and spreading stories about me that were not true. And they started spreading misinformation, rumors that were not true. My sister and dad started mocking me in front of their friends, not cooking food for me, or letting my food get cold, like they would make food but let it get cold, or not get food for me at all. They would go to restaurants without me, celebrating Christmas and New Year without me, going to France or Disneyland without me, just leaving me alone. Well, I did not mind this as much because I had God. I had God I had God on my side. And every time I cried, I felt a hand on my shoulder because the Lord was with me all the time. Even my birthday has not been celebrated for like 3 years because of that, because of me turning to Christ and changing who I am for the better. And at one point it got to the point that there was physical violence. There was an argument, and my dad said he was gonna bash my head against the wall. And so I confronted him, and I said, do you want to say that to my face? And he said no, and put his middle finger up. So I said, whatever, you don't want to tell it to my face, so what's the point? And then he suddenly stood up with a plate in his hand, and I got and like went towards me. I didn't know what he wanted, but he was already aggressive. So I pushed him over because he was getting in my personal space. And then, yes, things started escalating from there between my dad and my sister and me. And the police got called. And then the police asked, do you want to be away from your family for a bit? And I said yes. I asked him, please take me away from my family for a bit, because I do not want to be with these people. So they took me to a hospital, usually for depressive people, for people that are depressed. I was not depressed, but they took me there so I could stay there for a bit, that I'm away from them. When I was back, they were doing the same exact thing. And then I came to know that they lied to everyone. They lied about the story, what actually happened. They lied about things I said, things I've done. And they said they were going to press charges against me. But I said I had a USB stick hidden, multiple USB sticks hidden with proof of their abuse. And they didn't press any charges anymore. And my dad also had this scared look of, oh, he has proof. And I'll be putting my testimony, my written testimony from in July, I think, or June. In the description. But yeah, at one point I also slept. That was earlier, before that fight. That was in February, I think, when it was really cold. I ran away from home, or it might have been April even. I ran away from home, and I slept on a bench when it was really cold. So I ran away from home and slept on a bench, and it was not nice. But yeah, I started begging God for things to get me out of the situation, and it came to February 19th. Well, before that, I begged God on my knees to get me out of that situation. So a few days after that, I got a job application. And this is why I chose this map, because the job application included that they moved me to a new country, Greece, Athens, that they put me there, and then they work for that company. So God put me there, and now I'm happier than ever. I'm not gonna lie. I did have PTSD. I had nightmares the first few weeks of being here in Greece. So, and I started praying that away, trying to rebuke that, and it's mostly gone now. So I don't really have PTSD anymore, I think. Well, at least not the last 2 weeks. I have not had any of those dreams, because it was almost daily that I had it, panic dreams that I woke up with related to my old home and my old situation. Well, there's a lot not mentioned in this video, but that is generally it. So I hope my testimony can encourage you a little bit, and I hope it can give you some motivation that God can even grab the most evil people, the most painful people. Even if you're all the way in a pit, He can go up. If you're in a pit, the only way is up. If you're rock bottom, the only way is up. I say, a strong tree cannot grow without water. So my tears did not go to waste. It actually built me. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and please subscribe. So I will be making way more videos because I can, and I want to glorify God. So Jesus loves you, and bye bye until the next video. FYI, this was a more serious video, so that's why it was like more monotone, you know what I mean? So yeah, it was a more serious video.